My name is Harold Burns, and I'm 68 years old. Folks around here call me Chief because I still carry myself like the Navy never let me go. I served 20 years on destroyers, mostly as an engine tech, then another 25 keeping air conditioners alive for half of Sarasota County. I've lived my life by schedules, gauges, and checklists. If it hums steady, I trust it. People? Not so much. Since Ruth passed last spring, it's just been me and the house we built together back in '98. A small cinderblock place 3 miles from the beach, paid off, hurricane-strapped, and quiet. I keep the gutters clear, the hedge trimmed to a square, and Ruth's coffee mug on the counter like a lighthouse. The brass plate under our framed deed still says ours, and that word keeps me anchored. The first odd thing came on a Tuesday morning. My tea tasted sweet. I've drunk it black for 40 years. My daughter-in-law, Brianna, had started showing up with groceries lately, saying she and Kyle didn't want me living off sandwiches and pride. She smiled too much, the way people do when they're managing you. That day she'd made the tea, patted my shoulder and said, "Chamomile, Harold, helps with the nerves." I didn't argue, but the taste sat wrong, like metal on the tongue. 2 days later, another odd thing arrived. A thick envelope from the county assessor's office. Notification of property tax reassessment, it read, with a note about escrow adjustments. Only problem, my taxes were already paid in full, same as always. I double-checked my ledger, neat columns of payments and dates going back 20 years. Everything matched. So why was the county writing me like I'd missed something? That night, when I went for my blood pressure pills, I noticed a new blister pack tucked behind the bottle. The label looked printed twice and crooked, like it had been peeled off and slapped back on. I turned it over in the light. Someone had tried to melt the edge with a lighter. Tiny brown scorch marks near the seal. I set it back exactly how I found it, shut the cabinet, and stood there in the dark kitchen listening to the fridge hum. Before bed, I opened my notebook, same one I've used since '82, and wrote, "T-Suite, new pills, check county records." Then I turned the page and stopped cold. Taped inside the next sheet was a copy of my house key I hadn't made. Thanksgiving came early that year. Kyle and Brianna insisted I spend it at their new place, a spotless 2-story box in a gated subdivision where the mailboxes matched the lawns and every SUV looked leased. When I walked in, the air smelled like cinnamon candles and new money. I brought my own pie. Brianna thanked me, then slid it straight to the counter, untouched. Dinner started fine. Football murmured from the living room. Kids from Brianna's sister tore laps around the table, and Kyle poured wine like a talk show host. Halfway through the turkey, he tapped his spoon on his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, flashing that grin of his. "To family, and to Dad finally letting go of the boring stuff so he can enjoy life." Everybody clapped. I didn't. I just asked, "What boring stuff?" Kyle winked. "Bills, forms, maintenance. You've done enough numbers for one lifetime." Brianna reached into a slim folder beside her plate and laid a few sheets in front of me. "We've already pre-filled everything. Just sign where it's flagged." I unfolded the top page. Durable power of attorney. My signature already floated at the bottom. Crooked, slow, almost believable. My heart started a slow hammer in my chest. "When did I sign this?" I asked. Brianna kept her smile. "Last week, remember? You were tired. Kyle thought we'd handle the paperwork so you wouldn't stress." "I wasn't tired," I said, "and I sure as hell didn't sign this." Kyle chuckled too loud. "Dad, don't start. It's just a formality. Everyone knows you've been forgetful." The word forgetful landed like a slap. Around the table, nobody looked at me. Ruth's empty chair in my mind felt louder than the clinking plates. I folded the paper, slid it back toward him, and said quietly, "You forged my name." He leaned close, voice low enough for just me. "Careful, Dad. People might think you're getting confused again." The laughter picked back up like nothing happened. I chewed the rest of my dinner without tasting it. When I left, Brianna pressed a blister pack into my jacket pocket. "Don't forget your meds," she said sweetly. I drove home with that pack heavy against my chest. When I set it on the kitchen table under the lamp, the crooked label shined the same as the one in my cabinet. And when I flipped it over, the seal had been melted in the exact same spot. Proof that somebody was repeating the same trick. They showed up the next afternoon like they'd heard my thoughts through the walls. Brianna carried a grocery bag, Kyle a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thought we'd check in," he said, dropping his keys on my counter like he lived there. "You were here last night," I said. "Yeah, but you left early." He looked around. "House feels quiet." Brianna was already filling the kettle. "Tea, Harold? Chamomile?" I pulled the mug from her hand before she could pour. "Black," I said flat, "and I'll make it." She blinked once, then set the kettle down. Kyle laughed. "Dad, you're acting like we're poisoning you." "Are you?" That shut the laughter down. The only sound was the kettle starting to rumble. Brianna crossed her arms. "You've been off lately. Maybe dizzy spells, confusion. It's normal at your age. We just want to help before something happens." "Like signing papers I didn't sign?" Her smile froze. "You don't remember?" "I remember every damn thing, especially my own signature." Kyle stepped closer, jaw tight. "You need to relax. The doctor said, I haven't seen a doctor in 6 months." I cut him off. "So which one told you that?" He glanced at Brianna, then away. The kettle whistled hard and sharp. I let it scream until the steam fogged the cabinets. "You came here last night," I said quietly. "Used that spare key. Why?" Brianna's face went pale. "That's ridiculous. Then why was my medicine replaced?" Kyle shook his head, palms up like he was calming a drunk. "Dad, this paranoia isn't healthy. You left the garage open. You forgot our talk about the care plan." My throat went dry. "You mean the care plan that moves me out of my own house?" He sighed, turned toward the door. "See? This is why we're trying to help. You're not thinking straight." I watched them leave. The front door clicked behind them. Through the sidelight window, I saw Brianna lean close to Kyle's ear, whisper something, then laugh. I stood in the quiet kitchen until the laughter faded down the drive. Then I pulled my old pill bottle from the trash. The foil on the cap was new. Underneath, the pills were a different color, chalky instead of white. I took one out, rolled it in my fingers, and dropped it in Ruth's old teacup. It hissed faintly as it hit the liquid. Whatever they were slipping me, it wasn't medicine. And I was done being their test subject. The next week felt off-kilter, like walking a deck in heavy chop. Neighbors who'd waved for 20 years now just nodded and looked away. At the diner, old man Rizzo, same guy I used to patch ACs with, gave me a polite smile and said, "Heard you're moving into that new care place. Guess Kyle's taking over the house, huh?" I just stared. "Where'd you hear that?" "From Brianna, I think. She said you wanted to downsize." He looked at me the way people look at a dog they're not sure still bites. By the time I got home, there was an envelope taped to my front door. Notice of pending sale evaluation, Suncoast Realty. Inside was a glossy flyer showing my house listed as available soon. The listing agent's note read, "We can stage it whenever you're ready, Harold." Ready? I hadn't packed a damn thing. That night, I went to check the security camera above the kitchen door, the one I installed after a break-in years ago. When I opened the back panel, the slot for the memory card was empty. The screw holes were still warm, like someone had just taken it. I called Kyle's cell, straight to voicemail, then Brianna's, also voicemail. At 10:30, a white SUV rolled up the drive, headlights off. It idled for a minute, then backed out again. Through the blinds, I saw the plate flash silver before disappearing. Kyle's. Inside the house, the air felt too still. I walked room to room with a flashlight. Drawers slightly open. My ledger moved half an inch on the desk. Someone had been here, careful but careless enough for a man like me to notice. On the kitchen counter sat a mug, mine, but filled with tea I hadn't made. Steam still curled from it. And next to the mug, laid out neat as evidence, was a folded sheet of paper. Consent to transfer property, assisted care agreement. At the bottom was my name, forged again, this time with a notary stamp that looked real. I didn't touch it. I just took a picture, dated it in my notebook, and locked every window. Then I dragged a chair into the hallway and sat there with my old Navy flashlight across my knees like a rifle. If they came again, I wanted to see their faces. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the lock on my back door turned once, slow, deliberate, and stopped. The sound of that lock froze me. I held my breath and waited for footsteps that never came. When I finally opened the door, the night was empty. No lights, no engine noise, just crickets and that wet coastal air that sticks to your neck. Still, something had changed inside the house. The living room window was cracked open 2 inches, the blinds swaying like they were breathing. On the table beneath it, my ledger lay open. Someone had flipped to the last page and written 3 words in neat block letters: "Let it go." By morning, my stomach felt like it had swallowed gravel. I drove straight to the bank. The teller knew me. Sharon, polite girl who calls everyone sir. When she pulled up my account, her face did a small twitch. "Mr. Burns," she said, careful, "you made a large wire transfer last night. Is that correct?" I leaned closer. "How large?" $85,000. The floor might as well have tilted. "To who?" "Suncoast Property Holdings, LLC. I felt heat climb up my neck. "Reverse it, now." "I'm sorry, sir. The authorization came through with power of attorney credentials." Her voice was gentle, but already past believing me. I left the bank with a paper receipt that felt like a death certificate. At home, the mailbox bulged with new letters. A delinquent property tax notice stamped red. A Welcome to Golden Palms brochure with my name printed under new resident. And a foreclosure warning dated 2 weeks ahead. Inside, the house smelled of lemon cleaner and distance. Even Ruth's photo looked tired on the shelf. I heated a can of soup and ate it standing up, the spoon clinking against the pot. My phone buzzed. Text from Kyle. "Dad, don't fight this. It's for your safety. We'll visit soon." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Outside, the neighborhood lights went out one by one until only my porch lamp burned. I sat there in the dark, with my ledger on my knees, pages fluttering in the fan's breeze like they were trying to breathe life back into me. For the first time in years, I wondered if maybe I really was slipping. If maybe Ruth would have told me to stop fighting and rest. Then my eyes caught the last note I'd written. T-Suite, new pills, check county records. Everything since that entry lined up like rows of evidence. Someone was rewriting my life, and I was letting them. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and opened the medicine cabinet again. The crooked blister pack sat there waiting. This time I didn't just look at it. I pulled one pill out, dropped it into a glass of water, and watched it dissolve milky white. It hissed like a secret finally speaking, and in that hiss, I heard Ruth's voice clear as a bell. "Don't you dare let them win." I didn't sleep that night. The pill's hiss kept playing in my head like a ticking clock. By dawn, I'd lined up every bottle from the cabinet across the counter, 5 in total. 3 were prescriptions I recognized. 2 were strangers. I looked closer at the labels. The font spacing was off, like someone had printed them at home. I peeled one corner, and the truth came up with it. Under the fake label was the real one. Diazepam 10 milligrams, a sedative. They'd been dulling me, slow enough to doubt myself, soft enough to sign away everything without a fight. But I wasn't soft. I was a Navy man, and Navy men run toward the fire, not from it. I dumped the pills into a sandwich bag, sealed it, and wrote in my ledger, "Collected suspect meds, possible tranquilizer." Then I made a list the way I used to plan repairs. Get the pills tested, record everything, find a witness who still believes me. That third part was the hardest. Half the neighborhood thought I'd gone senile, and the other half was too polite to say so. But there was one name that still meant backbone. Tom Reeves, retired cop, same ship crew back in '78, lives 2 towns over. I found his number on an old Navy reunion list and dialed. "Reeves," a gravel voice answered. "It's Burns," I said. "You still trust your eyes?" He laughed once. "Depends what I'm looking at." "I think my son and his wife are drugging me," I said, "and I can prove it." The line went quiet. Then his tone shifted. "Bring the meds. I've got a buddy at the state lab who owes me. We'll see what's really in those capsules." By noon, I was on the road with the sandwich bag in my pocket and the windows down. The farther I drove, the clearer my head felt, like fog burning off steel. At Tom's place, he met me on the porch with 2 coffees and that same look he wore in uniform, half doubt, half readiness. We talked for an hour, laying out every detail, tea, forged forms, bank transfers, the key. He wrote it down like a police report. When I finished, he nodded once. "You've got a pattern of coercion and fraud," he said. "They're trying to make you look incompetent before they take the house." "Then we prove it," I told him. Tom handed me a small box. "Mini camera, motion activated. Set it near wherever she mixes that tea. Let it roll." I gripped it tight. "What if they catch me setting it?" He smiled. "Then act confused. It's what they expect from you. Use their story against them." That night, I mounted the camera under the kitchen cabinet, right above the tea jars. The red light blinked once and went still. Then I sat back in my chair, the house quiet around me, and waited for the morning visit I knew was coming. At 8:14 a.m., tires crunched in the driveway, and Brianna's shadow slid across my window. Brianna came in like every other morning, chirping about vitamins and sunshine. I watched from the hallway mirror, pretending to shuffle papers while the camera under the cabinet blinked its tiny red light once. Then still. She pulled my tea mug off the shelf, slipped something from her purse into the drawer, and poured. When I coughed deliberately, she jumped. "Morning, Harold," she said too quickly. "How's your head?" "Clear," I said. "Clearer than it's been in weeks." She smiled, but her eyes narrowed, calculating. When she left, I waited until her SUV turned the corner before pulling the SD card. I slid it into my laptop. The screen showed her hand dropping 2 pills into my cup and then replacing the bottle in the cabinet. Every motion clean, practiced. My pulse stayed calm, but a part of me, the part the Navy built, clicked into gear. That night, I drove back to Tom's place. He poured us black coffee and closed the blinds. We laid out the evidence like a field map. Step 1, I said, writing it in my ledger. Get the pills tested. Tom nodded. Already sent. My guy will rush it. Step 2, I continued. Duplicate the video and store copies off-site. If they come looking, I don't want them erasing it. Tom handed me a flash drive. Done. Step 3, I said. Track every bank withdrawal since August. If they're moving money, it leaves a trail. He grinned. I can pull some reports through my old contacts. Let's see where your retirement's really going. Step 4, I said, tapping the pen. Find someone with authority who'll believe me. Lawyer, journalist, doesn't matter. Once the test results land, we go public. Tom leaned back, arms crossed. Careful, Harold. You poke this nest, they'll sting hard. You sure you're ready? I thought about Ruth's voice the night before. Don't you dare let them win. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. He handed me a prepaid phone. Use this from now on. No paper trail. When I got home, I tucked the flash drive behind the air vent cover and set the camera for another round, this time on motion only. At 11:42 p.m., a car door slammed outside. I killed the lights, sat in the dark, and watched a shadow cross the window again. Voices whispered near the porch. Kyle's and Brianna's both. The doorknob turned once, then again, and through the silence I heard Kyle's low voice say, "We'll switch the bottle tonight." I reached for my phone and hit record. The recording from that night was grainy, but clear enough. Kyle's voice, low and irritated. If he keeps resisting, we'll tell the doctor he's paranoid. Once he's in the system, they'll believe whatever we say. Brianna's answer came sharp as glass. Fine, but we need him calm when the buyers show next week. I played it 3 times, labeling the file audio_evidence_1 before saving it to Tom's flash drive. The camera had done its part. Now I needed to make sure someone outside my house saw it too. Next morning, I carried my duffel, the same one I'd taken to sea decades ago, to Tom's. Inside were my ledger, the pill bag, the video files, and the audio clip. Tom spread everything on his kitchen table, his cop instincts coming back like muscle memory. He pointed at the pills. My guy texted me this morning. Lab results just came in. He opened an envelope and read, "Sample contains diazepam mixed with crushed atenolol, sedative with heart rate suppressor, dangerous when taken regularly." He looked up. They were drugging you, Harold, no doubt. I nodded once, the way you do when confirmation hurts but doesn't surprise. Then we moved to step 4, I said. Expose it. We met with Ellis Granger, a local lawyer Tom trusted. Old school type, thick glasses, still used a yellow legal pad. He listened without interrupting, only asking for copies of the video and audio. When we finished, he leaned back. "This is criminal," he said. "Fraud, elder abuse, attempted poisoning. But we need the link between the drugs and the property transfer to make it airtight." "I've got the forged power of attorney," I said. "Good," Ellis replied. "Get me the latest deed from the county office. If that's been touched, we'll have them dead to rights." That night, I parked 2 blocks from the county annex and walked in just before closing. Clerks barely looked up. I requested a certified property record under my address and waited while the printer chugged. When the pages came out, my stomach turned. Ownership transfer. Pending, signed under my name, dated 10 days ago. I slid the papers into a folder, stamped the time in my ledger, and drove straight back to Ellis's office. He read them, whistled low. You were right. They're staging a pre-sale before the transfer finalizes. We'll freeze it first thing tomorrow. By the time I got home, dusk had sunk the street into gray. A new car sat in my driveway, a white SUV, Brianna's. Through the window, I saw her standing at my counter, phone to her ear. I stayed outside, engine off, watching her silhouette move. After a minute, she left a small box on the table and walked out the back door. When I finally stepped inside, the box was still there, neat as a gift. Inside lay a fresh bottle of pills with a note taped around it. "Trust us, Harold. You're not well." I set the bottle down beside my camera lens, hit record, and spoke slow into the mic. "This is Harold Burns, 68, Sarasota. The date is March 22nd. This bottle was left without consent. Contents appear tampered. Recording begins now." I peeled the seal with my pocket knife, revealing the same crooked edge, the same smell of chalk and lies. Physical evidence #1. Video of tampered pills, audio confession, and lab report complete. As I closed the lid, headlights flashed across my window again. Kyle's voice outside. "He's getting worse. We do it tomorrow." I shut off the lights, grabbed my ledger, and whispered to Ruth's photo, "Tomorrow's fine, I'll be ready." By sunrise, I'd slept maybe an hour, but my mind ran clear as a blueprint. I'd spent the night copying every file onto 3 drives, one hidden behind the air vent, one mailed to Ellis, one taped under the seat of my truck. When people call you crazy, redundancy is sanity. At 8:30, the knock came. Brianna first, Kyle behind her, holding coffee like a peace offering. "Morning, Dad," he said. "We need to talk." "Good," I said, opening the door wide. "Me too." They stepped inside, glancing around like burglars returning to the scene. Kyle started his speech. "Look, this house—" I cut him off. "Before you start, I want to show you something." I walked to the counter, plugged the flash drive into the laptop, and hit play. The video rolled, Brianna's hand dropping pills into my mug. Her smile slid off her face like paint in rain. "What is this?" she stammered. "Evidence," I said, "and here's the soundtrack." I clicked the audio file. Their voices filled the kitchen, every word about keeping me calm and buyers next week. Kyle lunged forward, slamming the laptop shut. "Where'd you get that?" "From my own damn house," I said, "where you keep forgetting I still live." Brianna tried to recover, voice trembling. "Dad, you're confused. These can be edited." I slid the lab report across the table. "Then maybe the state toxicology lab is confused too. That's their signature, not mine." Kyle's face reddened. "You think a few clips are going to stop this sale? You don't even know what's signed already." "I know enough," I said, "and so will my lawyer." He froze. "You got a lawyer?" "2 of them," I lied. He forced a laugh that didn't land. "You're making a mistake. People will see you losing it." "Good," I said. "Let them watch." He turned to leave, muttering to Brianna. At the door, he paused, voice low and shaking with anger. "You want a war, old man? You just got one." When the door slammed, the windows rattled. I sat down, breathing steady, and wrote in my ledger, "Confrontation recorded. Reaction hostile. Threat issued." The phone rang 5 minutes later. Caller ID, Suncoast Realty. A woman's voice chirped, "Mr. Burns, just confirming the property inspection for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Your son approved it." I looked at the locked front door, at the evidence spread across the table, at Ruth's picture watching from the shelf. Then I smiled for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow they'd come to inspect a house they no longer owned, and I'd be waiting with the sheriff. The next morning broke bright and sharp. I was already up, coffee in hand, when the white SUV rolled in with the Suncoast Realty sedan right behind it. Two agents in pressed polos got out, smiling the way people do when they think they're doing you a favor. Kyle followed, wearing his good shirt. Brianna trailed behind, phone in hand, pretending calm. "Morning, Dad," Kyle said, too cheerful. "Just here for a walkthrough. Standard procedure before the closing." "Closing?" I asked. "You might want to tell that to my lawyer." The agents hesitated. "Sir, we were told that my son had legal authority. He doesn't. Not anymore." I opened the door wide, and there stood Sheriff's Deputy Leland, broad-shouldered and calm as a dock piling. Tom had called him that morning, quietly filing a report for elder fraud and trespassing. The deputy held up his badge. "Mr. Burns invited me. Any business conducted here stops until this is resolved." Kyle's smile cracked. "This is a family misunderstanding." Leland glanced at me. "He your power of attorney?" "No," I said. "That's one of the forgeries on record." The deputy nodded. "Then he's got no right to schedule anything. You'll all need to leave." For a second, nobody moved. Then Brianna whispered, "Kyle, let's go." But he didn't. He stepped forward, voice dropping low. "You're embarrassing yourself, Dad. Everyone's talking about how you've lost it. Claire from the credit union said you came in ranting about poison." He was gaslighting me right there on my own porch. I didn't blink. "I've got recordings now. Maybe I'll play them for the deputy." Kyle's jaw clenched. He turned on his heel, muttering curses I hadn't heard from him since high school. The realtors left fast, pretending they had other appointments. When they were gone, Leyland handed me a card. "If they contact you again, record everything. We'll escalate it to investigations." Then he looked around the house, shaking his head. "You've been set up, Mr. Burns. Happens more than folks think. Get your lawyer to file an injunction. Freeze the deed before it moves." As he drove off, the yard went quiet again. I sat on the porch and let the wind blow through, feeling something between relief and fury. The war wasn't over. It had just gone official. That evening, my phone buzzed, a new voicemail. I pressed play and heard Kyle's voice slurred with rage. "You think you won because you called the cops? You don't get it, old man. We'll have you declared incompetent. The judge will sign off, and they'll stick you somewhere you can't even spell your own name. Stop now, or next time, it won't just be paperwork." I replayed it twice, saved it to a folder marked threat_recording. Then I called Ellis, who answered on the first ring. "Good timing," he said. "I just got your deed certified and the forged signature analyzed. We might have what we need." "What kind of might?" "The kind that puts people in handcuffs. Meet me tomorrow morning. Bring Tom." I hung up and looked out the window. The porch light caught Ruth's brass nameplate on the wall. Ours. Tomorrow I'd make sure that word meant something again. The next morning smelled like rain and justice. I drove to Ellis's office with Tom riding shotgun, the duffel bag of evidence between us like a passenger. We walked in without knocking. Ellis was at his desk, sleeves rolled, a stack of folders open like a loaded gun. He slid one across the table. "Here's your second hammer." Inside was a certified copy of the property deed and a separate document from a handwriting analyst. Ellis tapped the highlighted line. "See this? The notary's stamp is real, but the signature is a forgery. The analyst put it at 98.7% probability not your handwriting. That's our second piece of physical evidence." I looked at the copy. The signature that pretended to be mine was neat, almost too neat. The kind of hand that practices lies. Next to it, The analyst had pasted samples of my real signature from bank forms Ruth had co-signed 15 years ago. The difference was obvious even to an untrained eye. Tom let out a low whistle. "That's airtight." Ellis leaned back, steepling his fingers. "We'll file for a temporary injunction to freeze all property transfers. Then we push for criminal charges: forgery, elder exploitation, and attempted fraud." I asked, "How long before the court sees it?" "Tomorrow morning," Ellis said. "I already sent a preliminary notice to the county clerk. They'll be served before lunch." I nodded slowly, feeling something I hadn't felt in months: control. Tom grinned. "Told you we'd get there." But Ellis wasn't smiling. He pointed to another paper on his desk. "Got an email from a contact in realty. Kyle's been shopping your house to private investors. He's got one lined up for a cash buyout tonight at the country club. If he signs, it'll look legitimate until the freeze hits." "Tonight?" I asked. 7 o'clock. He thinks you're still confused. That's our edge." I stared at the forged deed, the fake signature, the photo of Ruth taped in my ledger. Then I stood. "We end it tonight, in public." Ellis hesitated. "You sure? We can wait for the injunction." "No," I said. "He sold me off in whispers. I'll take him down in front of every man he respects." Tom clapped my shoulder. "I'll drive." We spent the afternoon printing copies: video stills, audio transcripts, the lab report, and now the deed analysis. Each sheet slid into the binder like a bullet chambered. I labeled the cover "Evidence," Harold Burns' case file in block letters. By the time the sun dipped behind the palms, I'd traded my work shirt for my best suit, the same one I'd worn to Ruth's funeral. Different battle, same kind of goodbye. As we pulled up to the country club, I saw the parking lot full of luxury sedans and heard laughter rolling out the open doors. Kyle's voice carried above them, smooth, charming, selling lies about new opportunities and family-backed ventures. Tom looked at me. "You ready, Chief?" I checked the binder once more and nodded. Let's see how he handles the truth. I stepped through those glass doors, and every head turned toward the old man they thought was finished. The ballroom smelled like money and false promises. Round tables gleamed under chandeliers, and a banner stretched across the stage: Suncoast Property Investment. Private partner reception. Kyle stood center stage, sleeves rolled, grinning like he owned the coast itself. Beside him, Brianna worked the crowd, handing out glossy brochures that showed my house under Phase 1 development. I walked straight down the aisle, binder under my arm, Tom a step behind me. The laughter softened to murmurs. Kyle spotted me halfway through his pitch and faltered. "Dad?" "Go on," I said. "You were talking about your big new project." People turned. A few whispered. I kept walking until I stood right beside him at the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, voice steady, "before you invest a single dime with my son, you ought to know where the seed money came from." Kyle laughed nervously, gripping the mic. "He's confused, folks. Dad's been under stress." I took the binder, flipped it open, and held up the first page, the lab report. "These pills," I said, "contain diazepam. My daughter-in-law fed them to me daily while my son forged my signature." Gasps rippled through the room. Brianna's face drained of color. Kyle stepped forward. "That's ridiculous," I raised my voice. "Here's the notarized document you filed to steal my house. Certified handwriting analysis says there's a 98.7% chance that signature isn't mine. Want to argue with math, son?" A low murmur spread among the investors. Phones came out. Cameras flashed. Tom moved closer to the stage, arms folded. Kyle's smile collapsed. Dad, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. Not yet, I said. Then I pulled out my phone, tapped the speaker icon, and let his own voice fill the room. You think you won because you called the cops? We'll have you declared incompetent. Stop now, or next time, it won't just be paperwork. Every whisper turned to silence. Even the bartender froze. Brianna tried to grab the phone, but Tom stepped between us. Touch him, and you'll be touching evidence. A tall man in a blazer, a county inspector, I later learned, stepped forward. That recording alone warrants a fraud investigation. Kyle's hands shook. You can't prove intent. Ellis's voice came from the back of the room. Actually, we can. He strode in holding an envelope. The injunction's been filed. The property transfer is frozen, and both your names are under investigation for elder exploitation. Kyle looked around, trapped in a room full of witnesses, phones pointed like rifles. His voice broke. Dad, I was just trying to protect our assets. No, I said, calm as steel. You were trying to erase me. The sheriff's deputies arrived before the room found its next breath. Brianna burst into tears. Kyle's voice cracked into curses as they led him out in cuffs. Someone started clapping. Slow at first, then more joined in until the whole room echoed with it. Not applause for revenge, but for truth finally dragging itself into the light. Tom leaned toward me. Guess that's case closed. I looked down at Ruth's small brass ring hanging from my keychain and said, not closed, balanced. Outside, the Florida night smelled like salt and rain. For the first time in months, my hands didn't shake. The weight I'd been carrying, half fear, half guilt, lifted with every breath. Tomorrow I'd sign papers again. This time they'd have my real signature on them. It's been 3 months since the courtroom lights went dark on my son's case. The papers called it one of the county's largest elder fraud convictions. I got most of my savings back. Not all, but enough to keep the roof that Ruth and I built, the one that still hums when the wind slides off the bay. Tom drops by on Saturdays. We drink coffee and talk more about fishing than courtrooms. Even Deputy Leland waves now when he passes my street. The whispers about the old man losing it have turned into nods of respect and quiet hellos. Some nights I sit on the porch with Ruth's mug and watch the neighborhood lights go out one by one. For a while I thought revenge meant hurting them the way they hurt me. Turns out it means standing back up and making sure the truth outlives the lies. My ledger's still on the desk, open to a clean page. This time, the last note I wrote is simple. House secure. Name cleared. Case closed. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories Men U55 America, because stories like mine deserve to be heard.